Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Call of Dragons developer Q&A number 12 that just dropped about 3 hours ago, I guess. This happened at 6:16. It's about 9:20 a.m. Eastern for me, so yeah, about 3 hours ago. Let's dive right in. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us on because it helps out a lot. Okay, number 1, which is Alliance Siege Bastions currently have a huge effect on warfare, leading to protracted stalemates, or elongated stalemates, between forces. Rallies and garrisons also lead to drawn-out sieges, making the game feel more like a grind. Are you looking into ways to remedy this? Now, we've talked about this a number of times before. The TLDR is that basically Siege Bastions are portable passes, and I think the fact is that the most impactful and probably most engaging and most enjoyable parts of the PvP is the open field gameplay, and really investing more into that and allowing for it to be more diverse, to be more to have more options and utilizations and tactics and strategies that could be implemented on that front, compared to what more often is kind of like a 1-2, 1-2. It's just very straightforward with passes, right? It's you join the rally, you hit it, right? You join the garrison, you defend it. It's very linear, if you will. Okay, answer. Daily double. No. When we began designing Alliance Siege Bastions, we hoped, wow, interesting. This is a totally new approach here. Just the way that this answer is starting off, where I'm now wondering, is someone new writing these? Have they finally taken some of the advice and some of the feedback that not only I but others have given, where it's, hey, we'd love to get a little bit more of an insight into your mind and brain on like what was the original intent, at least explaining what the hope was, and now we're already getting that with basically in the first 10 words. Okay, improvement, I would say so, but let's see if that continues and is consistent. We hoped to create a building that could suitably increase the duration of battles, preventing them from ending too quickly and making any enjoyment fleeting. Okay, so essentially they feel this is interesting because, oh, man, I could do a whole TED Talk on this one. But what I will simply say is that I think this comes down to just a disconnect between what the developer's original intent was versus how the game is actually playing. And also a disconnect in the way that you would approach creating long-lasting PvP fights, thinking that you need to add something like a Bastion in instead of allowing things, for example, maybe like increasing free healing, maybe increasing troop training speed, maybe increasing the amount of elixir that you get per day. Like they finally increased that to 8 hours that you can bank that for now, where before it was 6, and then might have been lower than that even before that. And so doing things that will allow as many players, maybe reducing the amount of overall time it takes players to actually get to T5 and to CH25, maybe reducing the amount of arrows and treaties that people need to get over those major hurdle humps before they can get to final City Hall and then final, I guess I should say final tier, right? Because they need those before they can then get their academy to 25 to do the the watchtower and then the rally garrison building that I'm forgetting the name of now. Right? There are other things that you can do without immediately looking at, oh, well, let's do this portable pass in here. And there's other things, like there's other map territory things that I think they can do aside from just a couple of points that I've mentioned. And I do believe there's even more than that. But again, I'm not going to go super into detail there. Looking at the season as a whole, this could result in wars ending quickly and entering a period of farming resources, which is basically kind of what you guys already have already. Spending too long, I should say for quite a few KVKs. Spending too long farming resources would also negatively impact the player experience. I mean, to be fair, if that's the case, why are home kingdoms lasting around 30 days? Why are they not lasting around 2 weeks? Right? I mean, we can make the argument there as well. In addition, and I'm saying consistently, like each season, in addition, we discovered that although the introduction of Alliance Siege Bastions did not help us to achieve our design goals to an extent by extending the duration of battles, long-term rally garrison gameplay also tended to sap players' will to fight and take the joy out of what was meant to be exciting PvP gameplay. I wonder, why not ask people this? Why not say, hey, here's an idea that we have. What do you think about it? this is what the idea is. This is how we're thinking of implementing it, and this is what our hopes are for it on how we'd like for it to see it utilized. And then maybe provide like a 60-second video clip from like a beta server or something, or a test server, and say, hey, this is how it would look. And then just ask for feedback. This is not a difficult thing. Now, yes, could you make the argument that they don't need to ask for feedback on everything? Sure. But for something like this, does it hurt to just say, hey, here's an idea? Because keep in mind, they kind of already do this, right? When they tell you, hey, fill out feedback forms when the patch notes are released, and they say that you have like a week or so to fill this out to give feedback on anything you'd like to see adjusted before the patch goes live. You're doing the same thing already. Why not extend it? Again, that's where my mind goes on that, right? And yes, it could be a double-edged sword, but I don't think there's anything wrong in this case with asking and/or taking the feedback in once these things have been implemented, so you can see how people are reacting to it maybe a little quicker, right? If you're like, okay, let's let it play out a season, which they already have, right? We're into the second or third season iteration now from once Bastions were added. Oh gosh, passion is flowing out of my mouth. Okay. As a result, we intend to retain Alliance. See, Bastions adding improvements that are currently in the design stage. Possible improvements include reducing the amount of time needed to remove siege bastions. This would speed up rally garrison combat, making it a pillar of warfare. A pillar. Oh God, my face is hurting. My ovaries. My manories. My manoveries. There we go. Making it a pillar of warfare without making it too powerful, and finding a role for it that suits its new environment. I mean, listen, Lindas, I will say this. I just don't think siege bastions are the way to go. They're tantamount to basically a portable bunker, which is a portable pass. And it's like they're kind of... Now, sure, could you have something where, doing this is basically like them adding in portable flag. It's like taking this mechanic from Rock, which is you rally the flag, and then once you win the rally on the flag, then you could start burning it when there's no more troops in there. It's like they're kind of trying to work something like that into CoD, but just making it like it's just, again, that's what it is. It's basically just a rallyable flag, if that's a word that can be used, right? And they're just calling it a bastion. So the fact is that CoD is so much, respectfully, more advanced in its combat and its PvP than Rock, and it's simply because of not only the range PvP, but the flying units, being able to have the activatable skills, and being able to have portable building structures that you could build. There are, and this is just to name a few things, but really kind of honing in more on that. I don't know if Bastions is the way to go, where it's like, oh, this is an immovable object that you can't get around. Instead of like something, and again, this is where I really think when you look at something like a keep, this is a good design because, yes, it operates as something that is kind of a soft building that, or a soft stopgap, right? A bastion is a hard stopgap. You cannot move beyond the bastion if you're going in that direction. Now, yeah, could you build around it? Sure. But if you have to go through a primary choke where you basically, if there's only one primary choke you're going through, then yeah, you have to fight there. Especially now that warbands are being introduced and you have multiple alliances per kingdom, you could basically have one bastion per each choke. So it's, again, that's where they're being put. Now, it would be different if the bastion was not being placed on a choke point and it was being placed out in the open field where you could still build around it, right? That would be different. But the problem is that most people are putting bastions on choke points, making it a hard stopgap. So again, bastions in their capacity right now, sure, would it be an improvement to make it to where you can kill off a bastion faster and you're not basically having these long, drawn-out, pass-like engagements on the bastion? Absolutely. But do I think that at the end of the day, like if you're asking me, do I think that we need this hard stopgap at a choke point, at a primary choke, where you have to absolutely go through this portable pass? No, I just don't think that's the answer to what should be added to really enhance the PvP. I think it does less rather than it does more. That's just my opinion. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Number 2, The season map hasn't been updated in some time. Will there be a new season map? Creating a new season map has been one of our core priorities. That's to each their own. That's up to everyone to decide how you feel about that. Each season, I will just say this. Season 2 came out a lot faster than Season 3. It's probably been 3 to 4 times the amount of time, if not longer, for the amount of time it took from Season 2 to come out, for how long it's taken Season 3 to come out. However, I wish I went back to actually do some date research. And again, so I'm sure some people probably will, or again, if you've done that, let us know in the comments. Each season of Strife is based on the existing game world, and we're currently pulling out all the stops to create a new map and bring you a brand new gameplay experience. We're also speeding up the production process of Season 3 so that we can bring you a new map filled with rich stories and interesting gameplay. When it's finished, all players in Season 2 will immediately enter Season 3 at the end of their current season. So basically, Season 3 will most likely replace Season of Strife, and then it'll just be Season 1, Season 2, Season 3. At the end of their current season. It will be available as a scenario for Season of Strife. It will also be available as a scenario for Season of Strife, so players who are currently in Season of Strife won't miss out. We'll share more details with you as soon as internal testing of the new map is finished. I mean, the fact that they're mentioning it hopefully indicates that maybe it's an update or two away, or maybe they're just going to release it on the 2-year anniversary. I mean, that could be something too as well. So what, we're thinking March, possibly? I mean, again, my thought is they would just replace Season of Strife, but the way they're making it seem now is maybe Season of Strife will stay there. So maybe it's going to be Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, and then Season of Strife. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing really is awareness and communication. And one of the challenges is that because there's been so many long delays between when information has been posted about Season 3, it very much can become an afterthought. And because for some players, and because can become an afterthought, you then can get people with this kind of out of sight, out of mind approach, which is like, oh, well, they haven't updated on it. What's actually happening? Oh, nothing's happening. It's been so long. Instead of maybe providing kind of periodic updates of saying, hey, these are the amount of phases. Like you could say, like, there's 10 stages for us updating the map. We're currently working on the storyline, right? We're on stage 5 of 10. Stage 6 of 10 is working in all the terrain and finishing out the landscaping. We've done that, right? So kind of providing something like a project plan of that, I think actually would have almost been a little bit better. So that way people can just kind of know like where you are at in the stage. And then, like I said, providing consistent updates would also help too as well. Again, that obviously didn't happen. There's only been a few updates on this. But yeah, I think most people were expecting for Season 3 to already be out. And as much as I have been as well because of how long it's been. And the challenge is that we don't know what we don't know. So unless the devs take time to explain these things on why it's taken this long, what stage of development they're at with Season 3, we don't know anything. So this to me is this is like one of those controllable situations or scenarios that we talk about where there's opportunity here that they could have used in order to mitigate some of the feedback, right? And some of the pitchforking, if you will. Next question. There aren't enough realms available for migration in the newest version. What will you do to fix this? What does that mean? We will continue do they just mean kingdoms? We will continue to adjust the migration system, trying as much as possible to avoid a situation where one server is dominant over all others. Following the release of the latest update, we have observed that most servers have not reached the 150 player migration limit. I wonder why. And this is a two-parter. One, it's on the side of the kingdom, and on the other side, it's part of development. For those that have, we will continue to observe and improve the migration rules, optimizing the player experience while ensuring that no server can become too powerful. I mean, that doesn't really answer the question, but it doesn't not necessarily answer. So the question is too broad and vague, right? I think a better way to avoid such a question would have been like the player capacities aren't high enough in some kingdoms for us to be able to move all of our players over. Like that, I think it could have been what they were getting at. But the problem is that the question they picked is so broad and vague, and it doesn't really go into any level of detail to really understand probably what that original person who posted that, their intent was behind it. So, I mean, the fact is that there are enough realms for people to migrate to, and we've done countless videos showing you the data on active kingdoms, dead kingdoms, and there are. I think what they also could be meaning is that maybe they would like for there to be more realms added to specific KVK pools that go into the migration phase where maybe there's not enough there. So an example would be when you look at the latest KVK group. For the longest time, it was 1 through 10, 22 through 90, and then they started adding on some more, like 100 from 100 plus kingdoms. And so, it's like you'd like to see more. Like, for example, the latest KVK group, they just added in, 312 or 314, which was YY's server. But that's it. They didn't add more kingdoms to that KVK group. So, again, yes, there are more kingdoms in Season of Strife overall that that players can still migrate to outside of that pool. But it's almost as though you'd like more of those kingdoms to be in the same timeline, the KVK pool timeline, right? Instead of being staggered out. So that way everyone is just aligned. Again, there's a whole other thing there too as well with, we talk about like hero releases, etc. For kingdoms that have been playing longer versus those that have not. Anyways, with that in mind. I just wish there was a little bit more here that went into this, because on part of it is that kingdoms oftentimes are recruiting above their median average, at least, where they want to try and bring in the strongest players. This happens more often than not. And so this also plays into why you're not seeing that 150 player migration limit being reached. And it very much was the case when you weren't seeing the 300 player migration limit being reached. So this is a little bit, I don't want to say disingenuous, but this just isn't accurate based on what they're saying because of the way that players are recruiting. At the same time, do I think that you should be able to bring in, potentially as many players into your kingdom as possible? Absolutely. But again, within a limit, right? So really what this creates is that you'd have to basically bring in people more at your median power average for your kingdom instead of at the top end or the top 1% for what we usually see on average. Okay, next one. Will you make it possible to know in advance whether we can join our fellow Alliance members in migrating to a new server? As we've recently introduced the migration preview feature, we covered this, which Alliance officers can find in the bottom right corner of the migration base. Officers can use this feature to simulate the results of Alliance members migrating to the destination. So they've added this in, but it's a preview, right? Keep in mind, it's not like you select everyone and then you select everyone and you can see how much you would fill the kingdom up, but everyone still has to migrate there basically at the same time in the shortest window possible if you want to have the highest percentage chance of successfully getting over every player in the migration group or pod that you plan to bring over to that new kingdom. Next question, can you kick, they're actually asking some good questions here. Can you kick players out of our server? We understand that players want to see better matchmaking, but banishing players is an extreme measure that can ruin other players' experiences and affect the atmosphere of the entire server. To remedy this issue, we are currently looking into ways to improve matchmaking, with possible solutions including not including inactive players in matchmaking or instituting a system where players can apply for a temporary hiatus. We welcome any suggestions you have on this matter. So we've already provided a suggestion to this, and I probably maybe I'll just submit it in the suggestions, because I've got some good feedback and responses from people that I've talked about this with. But I kind of think there's two ways to approach this. One is you create a system, you create a KVK registration system similar to what you do for Row, except the only people that can register, like the king would basically select the alliances that can be a part of KVK. Now, you could say that maybe that supersedes or overrides the warband, right? Which, again, and that's only if you have more than 4 alliances you want to bring into KVK with you. So to me, it feels like just allow the king an opportunity to register alliances by just looking at all the alliances in the kingdom and just doing a checkbox and just selecting the alliances that you want to bring into KVK with you, but also will be factored into KVK matchmaking. So you allow a registration period to be done. This way, the alliance leadership teams can manage the players in those alliances. And because you have, 9 people, up to 9 or up to 11 people now that you can have managing those, this should be very easy to do. You remove the people that you don't want to be factored into matchmaking within the alliance, and you allow the people to join that do. Right? No brainer. I think that, to me, is the easiest way to do it. Of course, this does not solve the challenge of removing players that affect your migration status and your overall kingdom power that could determine whether you are full or not. But it does allow for you to have an easier way to go about matchmaking. Now, if we're talking about something as far as removing inactive players, I think one of the things that would be a great potential solution for this is to bring back that Truce Island and then allow for one player a month to be moved over there. So this way it can't be abused, where you can just send a bunch of people over there, they won't factor in, and then you bring them back to manipulate matchmaking. Or what you could do is you can make it to like where the time window when the registration period comes up, as far as the system that's using it, those people just can't, even if they come back. I mean, again, you could do a couple things, but simply put, you move those people over Truce Island. So you add like a Banish feature, and then one player a month. Maybe you increase this at a period of time, but I think you should start it off as one player a month that you move over there. Because keep in mind, you are not going to move over the lowest powered players. You're going to move over the highest powered inactive players going top down. You're not going to go bottom up from people that are 10,000 power on up. No, you're going to remove people that are probably 100 million, 80, 70, 60 mil that are inactive and or are just not contributing, but you don't want them to factor into your kingdom status. And then they would move over to the Truce Island. They can still buy migration. They can still join an alliance, if you will, because you're controlling the ones that are registering. So they can join an alliance, so maybe they can still get alliance credits, so they can purchase migration. Right, nothing like that would be affected, so to speak. Or maybe you don't allow for them to join an alliance, and then you create a separate system that still allows for them to get permits and participate in some of the PvE stuff. But this is also a way to address rogue players as well. But I think more often than not, we're probably talking about inactive players and or just low contributors, so to speak, but probably more so inactives and then rogues. So I think doing something like that where you move them over to this area, it doesn't allow for them to impact the map, and then they immediately will not be factored into your kingdom status, right? Which could lower you from full to crowded, right, over a period of time. Because the idea is that, you know, once you remove all the high-powered and active players, the people that are really low power aren't going to be affecting it that much. So like I said, I don't know if you really need for it to be more than once a month. In that case, then maybe they can stack or pocket, right? So you can like store some of them, maybe up to 3 or whatever it may be. Anyways, just a general idea. If anyone else has other stuff out there, please feel free to let me know. I've written this down, I think, before. Anyways, let's move on. Can you change the color of warped damage data so it's distinct from skill damage data? A great suggestion. Will make this change in a later update. Awesome. Will you add more elixir items to the merit store? We improved the rarity of elixir items in the merit store in 1.0.31. You will now be able to obtain more elixir items from the merit store. I have way too many abandoned puppets. Will you introduce a way to get rid of them? So some of these I think they've already answered. Abandoned puppets are a good way to players to gain buffs and enjoyment of the game, but after a while they become less useful. We're aware the experienced players tend to have large stockpiles of abandoned puppets. We're currently designing a new way to scrap them. Okay. And again, those few questions they've already answered. There's no way to see how similar hero warp and artifact skills will combine with talent effects. Will you add this? As players' understanding of the game has deepened, we've received more and more questions regarding effect combinations. The situation regarding effect stacking is rather complicated, and we're currently working to straighten out the rules and find a way to convey this information clearly to players. Okay. For the moment, if you encounter any difficulties, please contact support to ask. We'll respond to every query. So I think this is actually a really good response and this question added because it is very specific and is essentially asking, like, how do we determine these fusion effects that are happening from all of these that are combining with talent effects? And I think it's like with anything. It's like you want to know how, well, if I add this to this, what does that effect look like? But then if I have to add this into it as well, what does that effect look like? What's the outcome look like? What do the numbers look like? What does the data look like? This, I think, again, depending on how it comes out, seems like a good way to address that, even though it's just, hey, we're working on a system to do that, but still at least acknowledging it, I think is good. Will you increase the daily warped capture attempt limit? The warped system is unlocked relatively early in Season 1 at a moment where players have multiple objectives they need to complete, making it an unsuitable place to make too many demands on players' time. In KVK Seasons, maxing out the relevant policies will grant you 5 daily capture attempts, which we feel is a more suitable match for players' average energy. However, once the season finishes and you return to your home realm to await the new season, players have much more time to complete daily objectives. As a result, we are planning to increase the amount of warpaths and resources in home realms during this time. Ooh, wow! I wonder if resources means RSS tiles during this time period through events and gameplay, and increase available warpath capture attempts accordingly. We intend to balance out the experience of the period between KVK seasons while ensuring that the experience of the KVK season itself remains unchanged. I mean, listen, man, if we're making a Pokemon comparison, okay, Ash Ketchum is not going to start farming and finding new Pokemon while he's fighting in the Indigo League. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to go out and start farming and trying to find a new Pikachu to capture or a buddy for Pikachu while he's fighting Brock in a gym battle. So you kind of have to look at it, and again, very simple way to put it, but the idea being is that I believe, you need to have more incentivized actions, activities, and areas of engagement within Home Kingdom that are unique to Home Kingdom, and then things that are unique to KVK. Meaning, you might have more things in a Home Kingdom during that period when you're out of KVK that are increased, but then during KVK, they're still there in Home Kingdom, but maybe they're just a little bit lower. Whereas, when you're in KVK, there's a high level or a high percentage engagement that's up here for what you're doing in KVK, but then some of the things that you could do in KVK, maybe you cannot do them in Home Kingdom, or you would just do them less in Home Kingdom. So, you know, and again, that's a very basic way of putting it, but the idea being is that, I mean, yeah, does it make more sense for your War Pet capture attempt limits for resources to be higher in Home Kingdom? Yes, because you're prepping those things to fight in KVK, right? So my thing is like this. If you're going to have Home Kingdom be a month long, and you're going to be, and that's a hard stance, which I think it should be a little less. But if you're going to stay that, then you have to be adding things into Home Kingdom that make it worthwhile to be there. An example of this is having higher RSS tiles there, having a faster RSS gathering rate. So this way you are prepping a stockpile for when you go and fight in KVK so you can fight there longer. Again, and this is just one example, like the idea is just, yeah, you have to have unique approaches for how you're treating Home Kingdom versus how you're treating KVK. Okay. Whew. Man, really going in there. Next question. Will you simplify the process of appointing ministers so that we can appoint players just by selecting their cities? This, I think, is a great one. As we've recently received a lot of suggestions from officers who want us to simplify the process of appointing ministers. This is if you're a king or queen and you're trying to appoint or issue titles out. Currently, ministers cannot be directly appointed by selecting their cities, and we are working to improve this as quickly as possible. We understand the pressure that distributing titles can put on players, and we are currently considering adding a title queue system. Thank you. This is what I suggested a while back in a suggestion, and we also covered this in a video on things that they should be adding in that just automates the process for management and just allows management to have fewer actions and fewer times they have to spend. So thank you. This is amazing. That would take much of the repetition and monotony out of realm management. And this is what we proposed. My proposition was that you create a queue system that players in the kingdom can join. As a member of management, you just assign how long you want to allow each player to have a title for. So you can do it per each title as well. So you could say, this title, we're going to give everyone 5 minutes with this, or we'll give everyone 6 minutes or 10 minutes, or you can make increments of 5. And then from the player that joins the queue, they can see before they join the queue, right? Or maybe when they join the queue. Definitely when, but maybe they could see it before. They could say how many people in the queue, how long it would take for you to get the title. Then you opt to join the queue. When you join the queue, a pop-up on maybe the top right of your screen, so maybe like around here of your in-game interface, would say the position you're in and the amount of time until you receive the queue. Until you receive the title. And then maybe it would allow, maybe they could add a notification to it. So once you're 5 minutes, like once you're the next person up, so like once the second person to you has got the title and it's like 5 or 10 minutes until you get it, you get a notification that says you are next in line, you will receive the title in 5 or 10 minutes. This, I think, would be the best thing that they could add to kingdoms. And this is the kind of things that I would love to see them do more of, that allow for management to control the customization of it, but the actual usage is more automated. And this is definitely one of those things. And I'm not saying that maybe everything has to be like this, but this is one of those things that is such a stressor for management, and also leads to so much leadership burnout, which if you are the developer of the game, this should be one of your top priorities. Why? Because if leadership gets burnt out, then the players that are playing in those alliances, because of they enjoy the people or they like the leadership there, they will stay playing. If they don't, they may consider moving. I've seen players quit and stop playing games because leadership got burnt out, nobody wanted to do it, and because of that, things started falling apart. If your management gets burnt out, then the support that the management is giving that alliance starts to lessen. And if things start to lessen and start to slip through the cracks and things aren't being done in a certain appropriate or timely manner as they should be, that could have negative alliance membership impacts that can be unforeseen. And so this is one of the things that I talk about often, where it's like the developer should really treat alliance leaders and officers / management teams as supervisors in game, team leaders for their game. Because they are some of the most important people that really will play the hugest impact, because they have the most amount of players under their stewardship that can really create either a good morale or a bad morale in the game environment. And so, man, I mean, this is great that they're adding it in now, but this should have been thought of the moment that the system got introduced. Just without a doubt. And this goes back to that, I don't want to say, and again, I don't mean to keep using the word disconnect, but it goes back to the thing that I've talked about a lot, which is that these are things that if you are not playing the game in all of its facets, I'm not saying you just make an account and you're playing as a member of an alliance. Like, you're playing the game to where you truly understand every level of what it's like being a member, and then being a contributing member, being an officer, being a leader, being someone who's a part of kingdom management, being a king or queen, and then understanding differences between home kingdom and KVK and the aspects that really come into what I believe is one of the most important areas of kingdom builders, which is the management side, the kingdom building side. And those are just things that sadly we don't talk about enough. But I love talking about these things because I think that they're drastically important to improving day-to-day player experience and quality of life. So yes, do I think this is a great change? Absolutely. Pure W. It just should have happened a lot sooner. Next one, the 30-member limit for the Alliance priority list is too low. Will you increase it? We are currently looking into how and why players use the priority list and are considering ways to improve the system while preventing it from being abused. So I think the easiest thing here, and I'm just going to point to one of the highlights, is that if you're in KVK, there may be situations where you need to move between alliances quickly. And 30 members is not the same as being able to move 100 players or 150 players from one alliance to another alliance if you need to, whether it's accessing that territory so you don't get rallied because you're on someone else's alliance territory. And I can't remember if they fixed that already or not. But again, that would be one of the things, right? Now, obviously, it could also be maybe you want to go help them out with a behemoth or something. So like those players that are participating in it, even though they fixed that with the warbands now, maybe it could be taking advantage. Like maybe it could be if you need to take advantage of using alliance skills, if those are still specific to the alliances, where maybe you have to join in order to actually utilize like the fog that's being sent out, which I'm forgetting the alliance skill name now, unless again, that's been changed. These are just, I guess, some things that I could think of. However, I am not privy to every single reason on why someone would need to have, up to maybe 100 or just 150 players to move. I'd love to hear from you guys who are fighting in KVKs and out on the front lines. What are some of the reasons on why you would want 100 active players or 150 active players to move from one alliance to another? And maybe it's just something that I just can't think of in the moment, but I've seen happen. And maybe it's something that I'm just not aware of. So I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments. And then let me see here. Oh, that's it. Cool. Look at that. 33 minutes in. That's all for our dev Q&A. This was a lot. There was a lot of major stuff in this one. I actually think this is probably one of the best Q&As that they've done so far, mainly because they took the time to explain more of their personal reasoning and thought process on why some of these things are the way they are and why they've implemented them. And these are things I would love to see them do more, because getting an insight, regardless if you agree or disagree, is great. So we know like what makes you tick. With that in mind, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's it for me. Until next time, we'll catch you later.